Sean Zattel, happy to be here, joined by a prospect in the featherweight division, 8-0, 100% knockout ratio with 8 knockouts, fighting for the sixth time this year. So props to you for that. And on paper, a step up fight against Alberto Guevara, who has fought Shakur Stevenson, went the distance with Leo Santa Cruz, fought for a title a couple of times. Man, what's up, Keith? How you feeling heading into this next fight on the Matias Smith undercard?
I'm feeling good. I'm ready, and I'm excited to show the world, my skills and my ability.
Now, again, you got a 100% knockout ratio. What would you, first of all, how real is the power, do you feel? And what would you say your best attributes are as a fighter right now?
I feel like I got pop. And I say that because I spar. When I get into the ring, I spar people that's way bigger than me, and I could hold my own. They could be 150, 160, and I'm in there holding my own. They're not just running up on me trying to, you know, um. Just trying to overwhelm me. And I feel like my biggest attribute that I obtain right now is just really my patience, my awareness of the game, and just understanding that I know I'm gonna get my opponent. I just gotta keep on figuring out ways on, how I'm gonna do it. That's my biggest attribute.
I was going to ask you later in the interview, but since you mentioned sparring, who are some of the best fighters you've shared the ring with and sparred with?
Um, I mean, sparring, I done been in the ring with. I'm gonna just say like really all the notable champions that I've been in the ring with. Richardson Hitchens, um, Richardson Hitchens, Cool Boy Steph. Another good guy that sparred was Christian Cardo, Dominique Crowder. Um, I did rounds when I was younger with Shakur Stevenson, when he was coming around Jersey a lot often. I've been in the ring with Amanda Serrano. Man, Richard Comey. I've been in the ring with Richard Comey. Like, I'm in the New Jersey area, so we all rush out to see each other every weekend. We spar, so yeah.
Yeah, for those who don't know, you're from Brick City, Newark, the same place as Shakur Stevenson.
Right.
But when you mentioned Serrano, I'm just curious because she could crack. How is her power compared to a man? Some of the men that you mentioned.
Yeah, so when I sparred when I was sparring her, we was sparring like prior to Katie Taylor fights and all of those fights. So it was really that's when I wasn't even pro yet when I was sparring her. But I remember when I sparred her, I told him like, you hit harder than a lot of the dudes that I spar, and yeah, she's a woman, but at the same time she did pack a lot of her punches.
No, I mean it looks like it on tape. Like she could really punch. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to hear that. Was it did it hurt more to the body than to the head? Because I know she digs to that body.
Uh what I would say is, she a woman, so like unconsciously they don't know like the line that's south, like they don't know where it's like get too low. So it'd be a couple times I just had to like oh I had to protect myself, but it's because she's not aware, she's not a woman. At the end of the day, she like when she fights, she could go down that low because again she's fighting women, she's not fighting a man. So anything down there definitely did hurt, but she just overall had a lot of power in her punches. Um, yeah, for sure. And she also she was there for the smoke. She's not trying to like back up or anything. Like she coming.
Yeah, yeah. We're just gonna dive into sparring for a minute because the names you mentioned, and we want to get into Guevara and what you got going on January
Got
10th.
you.
Yeah, was that so? Did you have to actually put something on your shots? Because I know as a man, even up against a fighter like Serrano or Clarissa Shields, you're a gentleman. Like you're gonna pull a little something off of
Yeah.
it. But did she force you a few times to have to, hey, you know,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah.
Because she's a tough woman. Like it'll be times where like I said, this was prior to Katie Taylor fight, so I'm not, I'm a man. I'm not gonna go in there and try to knock her out or anything like that. So I'm going there working on things, just as she was working on things. But me mainly, I was, like I'm working on movement. trying different stuff. And so like the times I'll be on the ropes or in the corner, it's odd for you to see a woman to, come at you with no hesitation, as she would do. So in those types of scenarios and situations, you gotta definitely put something on your punches because she coming, and at the end of the day, it's either you gonna get hit or not, So but it was great, like great work always,
Obviously she's Puerto Rican from New York, and you're Puerto Rican from New Jersey, born and raised. And you're fighting on a Matias card, and we got Xander 3 weeks after. And can you talk about that brotherhood? Were you a kid that looked up to Miguel Cotto? Because I
Oh,
know
for
you're too young
sure.
for Tito. You weren't even born when Tito was doing his
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, just talk about that Puerto Rican lineage and everything.
Yeah, nah. When people ask me, who I look, who was the boxer that I looked up to, one of the first ones I say is Miguel Cotto because again, like I'm Puerto Rican, you know, and like before I was even a boxer, before I even thought about, getting in a ring, me, my family, we would come together. And when Miguel Cotto fought Margarito, we saw those fights. I wasn't aware enough to sit down and watch. But I remember, like that was the get together, it's like, oh, Cotto fight, watch party. He fight Pacquiao, watch party, Floyd, watch party. So like those was the fights that like is most memorable to me because I remember just watching. Those are the ones I remember the most. I don't really remember even none of the other ones before that, but just Kodo, he was definitely like he was a big influence, for me. And especially early on in my career, like he's somebody that I like try to, follow in his footsteps.
Yeah, you were probably old enough by the second Margarito fight to know what was going on, not the
Yeah,
first one, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So, being that you're born in the United States, though, and coming up in the USA program, and a guy like Cotto or Tito, they're coming up straight from the island. What do you think is the difference there stylistically and things like that?
One thing I know for sure is over in Puerto Rico, they it's actually starting to change, but for the most part, like when you get like a lot of the old school gyms, they kind of teach the same. Over here, in the US, they probably teach more jab, footwork. Over there, they want tools is hook right hand. It's not like they'll teach a hook, how to throw a hook in the right hand before they teach you how to throw a one and a two.
Mm.
So and you see that with Cotto. Cotto was known for his hook. Tito was known for his hook. So that's like, they known for power punches.
Yeah, I thought of Tito immediately. That was him, the three
Yeah.
and the two all day, right? Yeah. It's funny enough talking to you for the first time now. I'm like, he talks a little bit like Shakur Stevenson. That must be like a newer thing.
Yeah, probably it probably is.
So you sparred him a long time ago. Let me ask you then, what do you remember from it? What do you recall?
I remember when I started Shakur, the thing I remember the most was I always noticed just sparring him and then watching him, I always noticed I'm like, dang, when he if you really pay attention to when he spar, when he fight, he already know what you want to throw before you throw it. Not because he's some type of, boxing guru or anything like that, but because he reading your body language. If you dip to this side,
Hmm.
I'm already blocking for a possible hook or uppercut. I don't need to worry about a jab or right hand because you not like the probability of you throwing that is not even, But so just watching him and sparring him, being in the ring with him, it's like, dang, just him understanding what a person could throw based off their body positioning. It always put him like two, 3 steps ahead of his opponents.
Well, I appreciate you illustrating that, man, because I think you're kind of fleshing out why it is he is hard to hit and why his
Yeah,
anticipation is crazy. Got it.
right.
Hardest is he the hardest guy you've ever had been able to hardest guy to hit that you've been in the ring with?
Um, when I sparred him when I was about, it was around the same time I was sparring Amanda, so when I was probably like 16, 17. So around those times, he was looking at me like, dang, this somebody, a kid from my city, somebody that I want to see him come up to, so I'm gonna push him. So it wasn't like, um crazy hard sparring. You get what I'm saying? It was just more so I could learn, and so I wouldn't even say, he's like one of the hardest ones. I'll probably say like right now, probably like Africa, because he's somebody that I spar. It's like Africa. You just kind of gotta take what he give you and build off of that. Or another guy is Christian Cardo. Because his high pace, he got a very high pace. He fighting like the lower weight classes, but he got a high pace and he's slick. He got a Jerron boost in his camp.
I'm gonna ask you about Hitchens again in a second, but I gotta ask you because it's the big one coming up 3 weeks after your fight in New York too, when he fights Teofimo. How do you see
Yeah.
that fight going?
Shakur and Tio, I actually feel like that's gonna be a great fight. I feel like this fight, Shakur and Tio, is gonna be better than Shakur and Zepeda, just because of the fact of Tio, he's more athletic, and he could surprise you. He could be down in the whole fight, and he's still going to be a live dog. Zepeda, you can kind of catch his rhythm, and you can kind of cruise through the whole fight, pick him apart. With Tio, you gotta be sharp the whole 12 rounds. And like how Shakur said in his other interviews, you gotta be ready for the best Tio because the best Tio is a dangerous Tio, as we saw against Loma, and the other times that he came prepared. But I feel like Shakur gonna win. I feel like T.O. style fits right into Shakur's style. It's just the attributes, him being a bit bigger, him being, just as athletic. That's what's gonna make for an interesting fight.
Is the onus on Tiafimo to make an adjustment? Little things like he's great when he gets to be the counterpuncher, he gets to be the
Yeah.
athletic guy, but when he has to come forward, he kind of comes forward still with the lead hand down, and is that
Yep.
something he's got to look at and tighten up if he's going to beat Shakur?
Yeah, for sure. The most notable thing that come to mind is I remember when he fought Sander Martin. Like every time he tried threw a right hand to the body, he never had his lead hand up. Sander Martin was just check hooking him to death. I'm just like when he's just gonna make the adjustment, when he gonna realize that he just keep getting hit with the right hook every time he try to throw the right hand. So those are the small adjustments that he had to make because, sharp fighter, they gonna capitalize. So he gotta be on his game.
Is it that when you got to pick your hand up, does it take away from your vision or your creativity? As I just noticed when a fighter is able to fight with the lead hand down, they can, I don't know, be more creative, give different. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's more so like they more in a rhythm. When your hands down, you more in a rhythm. You don't have to think too much. You walk with your hands down, you run with your hands down. It's hard to run with your hands up. And naturally, when you twist like your body motion, yeah, your hands sometimes could come down if you're not being disciplined or if you haven't practiced it like 100 times. So sometimes again, fighters do it. They don't even notice they doing it. But the ones that are super disciplined and look at the small little things, the adjustments that they can make. Those are the ones that's what separates the good fighters from the great fighters.
Is 8 to 10 weeks enough to get the reps in to shore that kind of thing into your muscle memory, or that? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. 8 to 10 weeks is more than enough. Um, it's more than enough, but it's also hard because coming from like if you want to put like let's say if I was T, all right, cool. You preparing for Shakur, however, we got sparring partners, so it's probably things that I also am doing in sparring that I gotta tighten up. So it's the stuff that he's tightening up things for Shakur to prepare for him, but also in sparring because he may have lagged during this last sparring, so. It's a lot, but it's definitely doable. And but this is the time is now. At the end of the day, they both two men. They bleed the same. You never know what happens comes fight night.
But ultimately, you're leaning towards Shakur to win that fight.
Oh yeah, for sure. I feel like Shakur is gonna outbox him, and it's gonna be a point in time until he kind of get desperate, and that's when the gap is going wide, and then Shakur is just gonna come out with a clean victory.